The process that distinguishes Tennessee whiskey is the process that came in with the West Africans. We wouldn't have known that if they hadn't put it in the press. My parents, they sat me down and said, listen, this is our house, we pay the bills, and so you either do it our way or you have to leave. Now, I don't think they expected me to leave, but I left.
What's going on, y'all? I'm Mia Bell, your host of BET Talks, and I am super excited to retain all of this knowledge, okay? I'm talking to entrepreneur, author, and of course co-founder of Uncle Nearest, the whiskey.
Yes.
Fawn Weaver, how are you?
I'm doing fabulous.
You look great.
Thank you, so do you.
Thank you, and thank you for the gifts that you brought. I got
Listen.
my Uncle Nearest.
Yes.
And my Love and Whiskey.
Yes.
And before we dive deep into your history and, of course, the book and all of the knowledge that you have to give us, we got to play a game.
Oh, I love this.
Now, this one is called Would You Rather? But I need you to tell me how you would suggest I take my Uncle Nearest at the following black events.
Okay.
Very black.
Very black, okay.
Yes. You know how we do.
Yes, I do.
You need to tell me if I should take it neat, on the rocks, or as a mixed cocktail. So what about a block party? How should I have my Uncle Nearest there?
Neat.
Neat? Okay. Sporting event?
Neat.
Kids' birthday party?
Oh, that needs to be a cocktail.
Okay.
Because neat, you want to enjoy it. If you got a bunch of kids running around, you may want to zone out a little bit. That one I would do a cocktail.
Okay. And what about Nana's 80th birthday party?
Neat. You need to be completely sober for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, you have such a remarkable story. I want you to take me back to 15-year-old Fawn, who left her home and said, I'm going to do it my way. Or you tell me how this all happened.
I grew up in a really religious household, and I have never been one where you could just tell me what to believe, tell me what to do, tell me what to think. I need the why behind it. And, you know, black parents, authoritarian, tends to be our style. We're now trying gentle parenting, which I think is good for our culture.
Same.
But the authoritarian parenting of, this is my house, you do it my way, you do what I say, that just didn't work for me. I wasn't that child that was just going to fall in line.
Right.
And so 15 years of my parents having that, and so they sat me down and said, listen, this is our house, we pay the bills, and so you either do it our way or you have to leave. Now, I don't think they expected me to leave, but I left. I don't even remember staying there for longer than another hour. Moved in with some friends in Jordan Downs and Watts, where the parents are definitely more loose with the discipline.
Now, what would you say all of that taught you, too?
I still question everything. I still want to know the why behind everything. I think the reason why this even exists, Uncle Nearest exists, Love and Whiskey exists, is because when the entire internet had come to the conclusion off of a single photograph where it was Jack Daniel with an African-American man sitting to his right, the entire world, without any facts whatsoever, came to the conclusion that Jack Daniel was a slave owner. He stole the recipe, he hid the slave. I, who insists on knowing the why, looked at it and said, let me get this straight. You have a photograph, the only known photograph of the most famous whiskey maker America has ever had. And you're telling me that he put an African American to his right, seated the entire center position of the only photograph that he has ever taken with anybody else. And you're telling me he did that because he wanted us to not know who this person was?
Ignore them completely?
To ignore them? So while everybody had quickly determined who it was, I actually wanted to know who was that African-American man.
So I want you to tell us the story that you found in Love and Whiskey when it comes to Uncle Nearest and the real relationship between him and Jack Daniels.
So Uncle Nearest is the first known African-American master distiller. His name is Nathan Green, but he didn't refer to himself as Nathan, and neither did his children, neither did his grandchildren. So out of respect, we don't either. He was formerly enslaved, and on the other side of of slavery, on the other side of the Civil War, you find that a lot of enslaved people, they had been named after those who owned them.
Okay.
Or after their kids. And so when they had the opportunity to name themselves, they usually would go by a nickname. And in this case, it was Nearest Green. He was on the property with a white preacher and distiller by the name of Dan Call. Well, then you have Jack Daniel born down the street. His parents are there, and he's a little mouthy like me. So we find Jack at about 7 years old that he's gone to a neighbor's farm and is a chore boy. So this is not a glamorous job. This is the person who's going and running and getting water from the well for the family, who's feeding the pigs, who's milking the cows, who's doing all of the farmhand kind of stuff. On this same 338-acre property is the distillery, where Nearest Green is the master distiller.
Oh, wow.
That's how the two meet. Working for the same man, one as a free child and one as an enslaved grown man.
Wow.
So Jack Daniel never saw himself as privileged. The kid was feeding slop to the pigs.
Right, chore
You
boy.
can't find privilege in that. And so his relationship with Nearest Green was one as equals because he didn't have the opportunity to benefit from his skin color.
And what brought these two together to then have Jack Daniels?
Jack's biography says that Jack just had this curiosity. He wanted to know what was going on the part of the property that he wasn't allowed to go to.
Okay.
And over time, Dan Call introduced him to Nearest by saying, this is Uncle Nearest. This is the best whiskey maker I know of. Now, in our culture, historically, you use the term uncle and aunt when it kind of meant good Negro or good slave.
Yeah.
In this instance, the most respected men in that area were all referred to as uncle. It was out of respect that they called him Uncle Nearest. And it was out of respect because he was the best whiskey maker. And in that period of time, in that area, there were 16 distilleries in a 4-mile radius.
Wow.
And his was the best. So we know we were always there, but we've never been able to prove that we were at the beginning of a famous American brand.
Yeah.
So the idea that I'd have the opportunity to prove that meant something.
And then you took your knowledge and you're spreading it with the world and reintroducing it in a way that is palatable to the others. And
I don't think palatable. This is the thing about America, is that we have to get better about being okay with our stories being intertwined.
Come on.
We have to get to a place where we understand that our success, both of our success, theirs and ours, are inextricably linked.
Yeah,
We did have allies. Jack Daniel was an ally.
he was.
But think about how quickly we made him an enemy. Not because we had any proof, not because there was any research, but because we just determined by the color of his skin and the latitude and longitude by which he was born.
Right. The conditioning that we've experienced
Yeah.
as Black Americans, too, that, make us believe that. And now here you are telling us the real story.
Why that's important? Nearest Green's family, he has over 100 descendants still living. Every restaurant and bar that they go into in this country and say, I'm a descendant of Nearest Green, do you know the level of respect they get now?
Really?
I want for other families to experience that. In order to do that, we need the companies that were founded in the 1800s and the early 1900s to come forward and say, you know what? These are the African Americans that were there at the beginning. So Jack made sure that his descendants carried on his legacy of not only honoring Nearest and Nearest's boys, George and Eli, and talking about their legacy, but they made sure to also be very clear that the process that distinguishes Tennessee whiskey is the process that came in with the West Africans. We wouldn't have known that if they hadn't put it in the press.
Tell us about the process.
Tennessee whiskey, in order to be called that, one, you have to be made in Tennessee. Unlike bourbon can be made anywhere in America. People in Kentucky, they keep trying to say that it can be made only in Kentucky, but
Not true.
that's not true.
Okay.
Bourbon can be made anywhere in America. But the other thing that you must do in order to be a Tennessee whiskey is you must run that bourbon distillate through sugar maple charcoal before it goes in the barrels. What it does is it removes impurities before it goes into the barrel. So you can literally, if you sip on Uncle Nearest all night, neat, or just on a single cube, don't add any sugar, don't add any carbonation, just sip on it neat, you will not wake up with a hangover.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
Now, what about your relationship with the Nearest family? You said there's about, 100 of them?
There's about 100 of them, and they're family.
Yeah.
They're absolute family. The aunties are my aunties, the cousins are my cousins, and they swear that I'm going to find myself on the family tree, but I'm the one who put together their family tree. And that was the beauty of this. Their different branches of the family did not know each other existed.
Wow.
So when I brought them all together and I brought them to Lynchburg, Tennessee, it was the first time many of them were meeting each other.
Did you know that your initial spark for this story was going to take it this far?
No, absolutely
Bringing
not.
the family together?
Absolutely not. I mean, this is
I'm like
something
in awe
that
right
only
now.
God could ordain, and he just needed a willing vessel, and I'm foolish enough to be a willing vessel and not to question him.
Would you say your spirituality and your relationship with God now sparks from the religious household that you left early on?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The thing is, I needed to know the why. So what I didn't get in that household, I wasn't able to embrace Christianity because I didn't get the why.
Right.
And I required that. But once I was on my own and I began to study, I had the basic foundation, but nothing was built on that foundation.
Yeah.
And I had to build that from scratch. And that came from understanding the why.
Now, of course, you mentioned your husband, who is also a founder of
Yes.
the brand.
Yes.
Now, it makes
Of
me...
all things.
Of all things.
It's my husband of 21 years next month.
Wow.
Yeah,
That
my
is
favorite
beautiful. And just to know that you guys have built this together and that he's just as passionate and interested and ambitious as you are to make this what it is and to bring the Nearest family together in that regard. Now, what position does he play, and how is it doing this together?
So when we began, he was an executive vice president for Sony Pictures. He oversaw global public policy and external affairs. He was busy. So he was there from the beginning, and he was blocking and tackling for me, but he had a very, very full-time job.
Right.
And it wasn't until this last year that he's been able to actually, he retired from Sony and is overseeing all of our operations.
Wow.
And we have the 7th most visited distillery in the world, not just whiskey distillery, all distilleries.
Can you tell me what it's like, what I'd be walking into?
Oh, yeah.
Give me a picture of it so I can, pack my bag.
First of all, the pure scale of it throws people off because
Okay.
it's 458 acres. And you pull up to it, and depending on which way you come from, if you pass the whole thing, that thing goes on. I mean, it goes on for a solid block, just the frontage of it. That was such a famous property in that area. We wanted it to have the majesty that the community has always enjoyed.
Wow.
And we've got about 60 horses that are on the property, so it's really beautiful. One of the best barbecue restaurants in the South is at our distillery. So people come, and we have a lot of people that come that do not drink. And I love that because I think too much of America drinks. So I'm not mad when someone says, I love the story, but I don't drink. I'm good. You the designated driver. We need more DDs in this country.
It sounds like such an experience. I can't wait to go.
For every woman, for every person of color, but especially every African American, every black person that steps foot on that property, you literally cannot be there and not dream bigger. I don't care how big you are, and we have a lot of celebs that roll through. We don't treat them no differently than everybody else.
Right.
And they come through there, and even they, at the end of it, realize they need to dream bigger.
You got it, Fawn, all the way. I am so in awe. I will keep saying it over and over again. We're going to play some more games.
I love it.
Okay? Now, I need all the black nicknames for brown liquor from you.
Well, yak would be cognac.
Uh-huh.
Vassier would be Courvoisier, but that is still a cognac.
Okay.
Henny would be Hennessy, but that's also a cognac. All the black nicknames, by the way, are for cognac.
Yeah.
so just go down the list of all the black nicknames for alcohol, and it's all in the cognac family.
My favorite is that brown.
That
That's
brown.
what I call it. That brown.
That brown. Yeah.
Now, I need you to give me some drinking songs. I'll start one off just so you know we can check the temperature. Rihanna, Pour It Up.
Here's where we're going to differ on what a drinking song is.
Okay.
I don't separate out drinking from my life. So I might be sipping on some Uncle Nearest and drinking and listening to Kurt Carr's For Every Mountain. Like I don't have a
song that pertains.
No, I don't have a separation. Now, I mean, obviously, Shabuzi's Tipsy song is really, really popular.
That's a good one.
That's really popular, except I would prefer for our community to not be tipsy. So let's start there.
I know, and of course, you got to tell us that part.
I would prefer for us to drink in moderation.
Yes.
Because we have too much progress to accomplish to not be fully sober.
And is this the biggest of accomplishments? And when I say this, I don't just mean the book. I just mean all of it. You brought families together. You have a distillery where we're able to go and feel that energy that you put into all of this.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest to date for you?
My biggest accomplishment is that I am still that 15-year-old girl in Jordan Down Watts. I've not changed. I am who I am. I walk into every room with the most confidence, not confidence rooted in arrogance, but confidence rooted in humility.
Yeah.
And the fact that I have held on to that, I have created the marriage of my dreams, and I am a whole person in the midst of all of this. That's what I'm most proud of.
Wow. I'm excited to get exactly where you are. It's giving inspiration. It's giving empowerment in all ways. Thank you, Fawn Weaver. We appreciate you. It's BET Talks.
Thank you.